The rain hammered against the windshield as Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The highway stretched endlessly before him, swallowed by darkness. His GPS had stopped working an hour ago, and his phone showed no signal. He had taken this abandoned road as a shortcut, but now he was beginning to regret it. The forest surrounding the road was unusually dense. The trees leaned inward as if trying to block the sky. The only sound was the rhythmic tapping of rain and the low hum of his car engine. Daniel sighed and checked his watch. 11:47 p.m. He had been driving for hours without seeing another vehicle. Just when he was about to consider turning back, he noticed something ahead. A figure, standing beside the road. Daniel slowed down instinctively. The figure appeared to be a woman wearing an old-fashioned white dress. Her long black hair covered her face, and she stood perfectly still, even as rain poured over her. Daniel hesitated. Probably someone who needs help, he murmured to himself. He pulled the car over and rolled down the passenger window slightly. Hey, are you okay? Do you need a ride? The woman slowly turned toward him. Daniel couldn't see her face clearly, but he noticed her movements were unnatural, too slow, too stiff. After a few seconds of silence, she nodded. Daniel unlocked the door. She entered the car without saying a word. The temperature inside the vehicle dropped instantly. Daniel felt goosebumps rise on his arms. "Where are you headed?" he asked, trying to sound calm. The woman remained silent. Daniel glanced at her through the rearview mirror. Her face was still hidden behind her wet hair. Water dripped onto the seat, forming a small puddle. "Hello?" he tried again. In a faint whisper, she spoke. "Just drive." Her voice sounded distant, like it came from somewhere far away. Daniel swallowed and pressed the accelerator. The car moved forward again, slicing through the rain. Minutes passed in uncomfortable silence. Daniel noticed something strange. The road seemed unfamiliar. He could swear he had already passed the same broken road sign twice. He checked the rearview mirror again. The woman hadn't moved. "Do you live around here?" he asked. No response. Suddenly, the car radio crackled to life on its own. Static filled the vehicle, followed by a distorted voice. "Turn back." Daniel quickly switched it off. His heartbeat quickened. "This road is really creepy," he muttered nervously. The woman slowly raised her head. Daniel caught a glimpse of her face in the mirror and nearly slammed the brakes. Her skin was pale, unnaturally pale. Her eyes were dark hollows, and her lips were slightly parted as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Daniel's breathing became heavy. "Are you okay?" he whispered. She tilted her head sideways, her neck bending farther than it should have. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Daniel's hands trembled on the steering wheel. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the headlights suddenly flickered, the engine coughed violently, and the car came to a sudden halt. "Great, just great," Daniel groaned. He tried restarting the car, but the engine refused to respond. The rain grew heavier. Thunder echoed through the forest. Daniel turned toward the woman. She was gone. The passenger seat was empty, but soaking wet. "What the hell?" Daniel gasped. He quickly stepped out of the car, looking around frantically. The forest was silent except for the storm. He couldn't see her anywhere. Then he heard footsteps behind him, slow, wet, dragging. Daniel turned around slowly. The woman stood a few feet away, but something about her had changed. Her body looked twisted, as if her bones were broken and rearranged. Her head hung loosely to one side. "You shouldn't be here," she repeated, louder this time. Daniel stumbled backward. I was just driving. I didn't mean—" "You took the road," she interrupted. Her voice echoed unnaturally. "The road takes everyone." Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the forest. For a brief second, Daniel noticed something horrifying. Behind her stood dozens of shadowy figures between the trees, motionless, watching. Daniel's chest tightened with fear. What is this place?" he asked. The woman slowly walked closer. Her feet dragged across the asphalt, leaving dark stains. "This is where they forgot us," she said. Suddenly, Daniel heard distant screams carried by the wind. The shadows in the forest shifted slightly, as if reacting to something unseen. "You must leave," she whispered urgently. "But my car—" "You cannot stay when they arrive." Daniel's heart pounded. "Who are they?" Before she could answer, the forest erupted with a deep, low growl. It sounded massive, inhuman, ancient. The shadows among the trees began moving. Daniel didn't wait. He jumped back into the car and turned the ignition. To his shock, the engine started immediately. He slammed the accelerator. The tires screeched as the car shot forward. In the rearview mirror, Daniel saw the woman standing in the middle of the road, watching him disappear. But something else appeared behind her. Tall figures, thin, their limbs stretched unnaturally long, bending like broken branches. Their faces were blank, featureless voids. They moved toward the road slowly. Daniel drove faster than he ever had before. The road twisted sharply, but he didn't slow down. The rain blurred his vision, and his hands shook uncontrollably. The radio turned on again. "You cannot escape." Daniel screamed and smashed the radio with his fist. The forest seemed to close around him. The trees leaned closer. The road narrowed. Suddenly he saw headlights ahead. Another car. Relief flooded through him. He waved frantically as he approached. The other car stopped in the middle of the road. Daniel slammed his brakes and stepped out, rushing toward him. Inside sat an elderly man. "Please," he gasped, "you have to help me. There's something on this road." The old man stared at him silently. Then he spoke softly. "You picked her up, didn't you?" Daniel froze. "How do you know that?" The old man sighed deeply. "She tries to warn them, but no one listens." "What are you talking about?" The old man pointed behind Daniel. Daniel slowly turned. The forest was completely still. No rain, no wind, no sound. Then from the darkness, the tall figures emerged, stepping onto the road. Their movements were jerky and unnatural, as if reality itself rejected their existence. Daniel backed away, trembling. "They collect travelers," the old man said calmly. "Those who enter the forgotten road never truly leave." Daniel turned back toward the old man, but the car was empty. The driver's seat was soaked with water and covered in dried mud. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. When he looked back at the road, the figures were closer, much closer. Their long arms stretched toward him. Daniel ran toward his car, but the engine refused to start this time. The headlights flickered weakly. Through the windshield, he saw the woman sitting in the passenger seat again. She looked at him sadly. "I tried to help you," she whispered. The car doors locked automatically. The tall figures surrounded the vehicle. Their blank faces pressed against the windows. The glass began to crack slowly. Daniel screamed, pounding on the steering wheel. The last thing he saw was the woman's hollow eyes staring into his as the headlights went out. The next morning, a truck driver passing through the highway noticed an abandoned car parked on the side road. The doors were open. The seats were soaked. But there was no sign of Daniel, only muddy footprints leading into the forest and stopping abruptly. The morning sun struggled to pierce through the thick mist covering the highway. The abandoned car still stood near the forest, silent and empty, as if it had been waiting for someone to return. Truck driver Mahesh adjusted his cap nervously while staring at the vehicle. He had stopped to check if someone needed help, but the scene gave him chills. The car door was wide open. Rainwater had collected inside, soaking the seats completely. Muddy footprints trailed from the car toward the forest, and then suddenly disappeared. Mahesh swallowed hard. "Strange," he muttered. He pulled out his phone to call the police, but the signal bar flickered and vanished. He cursed under his breath and stepped closer to the vehicle. As he leaned inside, he noticed something unusual scratched onto the dashboard. "Turn back before midnight." Mahesh frowned. The letters looked like they had been carved using fingernails. A cold wind rushed through the trees, carrying a faint whisper. Mahesh quickly stepped back. "Probably kids playing some prank," he said, trying to calm himself. But deep inside, he felt uneasy. Suddenly, he heard a faint tapping sound from inside the car trunk. Tap, tap, tap. Mahesh froze. The tapping grew louder. Tap, tap, tap. He slowly walked toward the back of the car. His heart pounded as he reached for the trunk handle. For a moment, he hesitated. Every instinct told him to leave, but curiosity won. He opened the trunk. Inside, he found nothing except an old, water-damaged photograph lying in the corner. Mahesh picked it up. The photograph showed a group of people standing on the same highway. Their expressions were cheerful, like they were posing during a road trip. But something felt wrong. Every person in the photo had blurred faces, except one. Daniel. Mahesh's hands trembled. How is this possible? Before he could think further, the mist thickened suddenly. The forest around him grew unusually quiet. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Mahesh turned slowly. A young woman stood beside the road. She wore a white dress soaked in rainwater, even though the sky was clear. Her long black hair covered her face. Mahesh's throat went dry. Do you need help? He asked cautiously. The woman tilted her head slightly. You must leave, she whispered. Mahesh stepped back. Who are you? You should not stay here after sunrise. Mahesh frowned. Listen, someone abandoned this car. I need to report it. The woman slowly lifted her face. Her hollow eyes stared directly into his. They never abandoned it, she said softly. They were taken. Mahesh felt his legs weaken. Taken by what? Before she could answer, the ground trembled slightly. The trees rustled violently, though there was no wind. The woman stepped closer to him. They are waking up again. Mahesh's fear turned into panic. Who are they? The woman pointed toward the forest. Mahesh turned and saw shadows moving between the trees. Tall figures emerged slowly, their bodies bending unnaturally. Their movements looked jerky, as if controlled by invisible strings. Mahesh stumbled backward. Oh God! You must leave before night returns, she said urgently. But it's morning. She shook her head slowly. Time does not move normally here. Suddenly, Mahesh noticed something terrifying. The sun above him had stopped moving. The sky remained frozen in early dawn. His breath grew shallow. This road, he whispered, is trapped, she completed. Mahesh ran toward his truck. His hands shook as he started the engine. As he prepared to drive away, he looked in the rearview mirror. The woman stood in the middle of the road again. But this time, Daniel stood beside her. Mahesh gasped and slammed the brakes. Daniel's face looked pale and emotionless. His eyes stared blankly ahead. His clothes were covered in mud and dried blood. Mahesh stepped out of the truck. Hey, are you okay? He shouted. Daniel slowly raised his head. Leave, he whispered. Mahesh walked closer. What happened to you? Come with me, I'll help you. Daniel shook his head slowly. You cannot take me from here. Mahesh grabbed his arm. Daniel's skin felt freezing cold, like touching ice. They are inside me now, Daniel said in a hollow voice. Suddenly, Daniel's body jerked violently, his back bent unnaturally, and his mouth opened wider than humanly possible. Mahesh screamed and stumbled backward. From Daniel's shadow, something began to crawl out. Long, thin limbs stretched outward like spider legs. A faceless creature slowly rose from behind him, its height towering over both of them. The woman screamed for the first time. Run! Mahesh didn't hesitate. He jumped into his truck and accelerated. The tires screeched loudly as he sped down the highway. Behind him, the creature chased the vehicle, its limbs slamming against the road with terrifying speed. Mahesh pressed the accelerator harder, tears streaming down his face. Go away! Go away! He muttered repeatedly. The road twisted sharply ahead. The mist thickened again, blocking his vision. The truck headlights flickered. Suddenly, he saw something standing in the middle of the road. A large, rusted signboard. It read, Welcome to Forgotten Road, no return beyond this point. Mahesh tried to turn the steering wheel, but it wouldn't move. The truck continued straight toward the sign. At the last moment, the woman appeared beside him inside the truck. Close your eyes, she shouted. Mahesh obeyed instantly. A deafening screech echoed around him. The truck shook violently, as if crashing through something invisible. Then everything went silent. When Mahesh opened his eyes, he found himself parked beside a busy highway filled with traffic and sunlight. Birds chirped loudly. Normal sounds of civilization surrounded him. He looked around in disbelief. The forest was gone. The abandoned road had vanished completely. Mahesh stepped out of the truck slowly, trying to process what had just happened. He checked his phone. Full signal. He immediately called the police and reported everything. But when officers arrived and searched the area, they found no sign of the mysterious road, or Daniel's car. It was as if it had never existed. That night, Mahesh sat quietly in his home, staring at the photograph he had unknowingly brought with him. The faces in the photo had changed. Daniel was no longer alone. Mahesh's own face now appeared beside him, blurred and fading. And in the background, the woman in the white dress stood silently, watching, waiting.
Mahesh hadn't slept for 3 nights. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same image. Daniel standing on that cursed road, his hollow eyes staring into nothingness. And behind him, those tall, faceless creatures waiting silently in the mist. The photograph lay on Mahesh's table. He had tried burning it twice. Both times, the flames died out mysteriously before touching the paper. Now, something else had changed. The faces in the photo were becoming clearer. Daniel's face had fully formed, but it looked lifeless, pale, and expressionless. Mahesh's own face was slowly appearing beside him, half blurred, like he was fading between two worlds. Mahesh rubbed his temples nervously. "This isn't real. This can't be real," he whispered. Suddenly, his phone rang. The unknown number flashed on the screen. Mahesh hesitated before answering. "Hello?" For a moment, there was only static. Then a faint whisper echoed through the phone. "You escaped, but the road remembers." Mahesh froze. "Who is this?" "The collector is counting again." The call disconnected. Mahesh's breathing became heavy. He looked outside his window. The evening sky was darkening faster than usual. The shadows between the buildings looked longer, deeper. And for a brief second, he thought he saw someone standing across the street. A woman in a white dress. Mahesh grabbed his jacket and rushed outside, but the street was empty. Only the wind moved through the quiet neighborhood. When he turned back toward his house, he saw muddy footprints leading to his front door. His heart skipped a beat. Slowly, he stepped inside. The photograph was no longer on the table. It now hung on the wall, framed. Mahesh stared in horror. His face inside the picture had become clearer, and his eyes were slowly turning hollow, just like Daniel's. Then he noticed something else. A new figure had appeared in the background of the photo, a tall shadow standing behind everyone. It was darker than the rest. Its shape constantly shifted, as if it wasn't meant to exist in this world. Beneath the figure, faint words were forming on the photo surface. "The collector." Mahesh stumbled backward. Suddenly, the lights in the house flickered violently. The air grew freezing cold. The walls began to produce faint scratching sounds, like fingernails dragging across wood. Then he heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Mahesh grabbed a kitchen knife and walked toward the staircase. Each step he climbed felt heavier than the last. The hallway upstairs was pitch dark. At the end of the hallway stood his bedroom door, slightly open. From inside, he heard whispering voices overlapping each other, dozens of voices speaking in languages he couldn't understand. Mahesh pushed the door open slowly. Inside the room stood Daniel. Mahesh gasped. Daniel faced the window, unmoving. His body looked stiff, almost puppet-like. "Daniel," Mahesh whispered. Daniel slowly turned around. His eyes were completely black now. "You were warned," he said in a hollow voice. Mahesh stepped backward. "I tried to save you." Daniel tilted his head unnaturally. "No one saves anyone from the road." Suddenly, Daniel's body jerked violently. His mouth opened as if something inside him was trying to escape. A deep, echoing voice emerged, not Daniel's. "The count must remain balanced." Mahesh's blood ran cold. "Who are you?" The voice laughed softly. "I am the one who gathers the forgotten, the lost travelers, the ones who choose the wrong path." The bedroom walls began to darken, melting into shadows. The floor beneath Mahesh started transforming into wet asphalt. The smell of rain filled the air. The road was forming inside the room. Mahesh screamed and tried to run, but the hallway had disappeared. The entire house was slowly turning into the cursed highway. The collector's shadow stretched across the sky above him. It was massive, towering beyond imagination. Its limbs twisted like broken branches, and its faceless head bent downward toward Mahesh. "You escaped once," the voice boomed, "but no one escapes twice." Mahesh fell to his knees, trembling. "Please, why are you doing this?" The shadow leaned closer. "Because forgotten roads need forgotten souls." Suddenly, the woman in the white dress appeared beside Mahesh. For the first time, her face looked clearer. Though pale and lifeless, her eyes held sadness and determination. "He is not yours," she said firmly. The shadow paused. "You were once part of my collection," the collector growled. "I chose to warn them instead," she replied. The shadow hissed angrily. The road beneath them cracked, and the mist swirled violently around them. "You break the balance." "I protect the lost," she whispered. Mahesh stared at her, confused. "Who are you?" he asked weakly. She looked at him slowly. "I was the first passenger." Before Mahesh could respond, the collector roared. The shadow figures from the forest began emerging from the mist, crawling toward them. The woman grabbed Mahesh's hand. "You must reach the end of the road before midnight," she said urgently. "Is there an end?" Mahesh asked. "For one soul, yes." She pulled him forward. The endless highway stretched before them in forward and darkness. Behind them, the collector's creatures chased relentlessly. Mahesh ran faster than he ever had before. The air felt heavy, dragging against his body. Whispering voices filled his ears, trying to confuse him. "You belong here. You are already forgotten. Stop running." Mahesh covered his ears and kept running. Far ahead, he saw a faint glowing light. "The exit!" he shouted. The woman's expression darkened. "Only one can leave," she said softly. Mahesh slowed down. "What do you mean?" She smiled faintly. "I was never meant to leave." Behind them, the collector's roar shook the entire road. The shadow creatures were seconds away. Mahesh grabbed her hand tightly. "No, we both leave." She gently pulled her hand away. "If I cross the exit, the road will claim another innocent soul to replace me." Mahesh's eyes filled with tears. "You saved me, twice, and you must live," she replied. The creatures lunged toward them. The woman pushed Mahesh toward the glowing light. He stumbled forward, reaching the edge of the road. As he turned back, he saw the collector's shadow rising behind her. For the first time, she looked peaceful. "Remember us," she whispered. The shadow swallowed her. Mahesh screamed as the light consumed him. Mahesh woke up lying beside a busy highway once again. Morning sunlight warmed his face. Traffic passed normally. Birds chirped loudly. He sat up slowly, tears streaming down his cheeks. He was safe. Or so he thought. As he stood up, he noticed muddy footprints beside him, walking toward the forest, but none leading away. Mahesh looked down at his hand. On his palm, faint words had appeared. "The road always needs a witness." And deep inside the forest, something stirred again.
Mahesh tried to forget. For weeks, he forced himself to return to normal life. He continued driving his truck across highways, delivering goods across cities, pretending that the cursed road had only been a nightmare. But the mark on his palm never faded. The road always needs a witness. At night, the words glowed faintly, like they were alive. Mahesh stopped sleeping properly. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the woman in the white dress disappearing into shadows. He heard the collector's echoing roar. He saw Daniel's lifeless face staring at him through endless fog. One evening, while driving through a remote highway, his radio crackled suddenly. "Witness." Mahesh froze. "The count begins again." The radio shut off by itself. Mahesh pulled over, his breathing heavy. He looked around. The sky was unusually dark, even though it was only 6 p.m. The road ahead looked unfamiliar. Then he saw it, a broken signboard standing crooked near the roadside. His heart stopped. It was the same rusted sign, "Welcome to Forgotten Road." Mahesh slammed his brakes. No, not again," he whispered. The sky darkened instantly. Thick mist rolled across the asphalt. The air turned freezing cold. The road had found him again. The truck engine died. Mahesh sat frozen, staring ahead as the familiar forest slowly formed around him. The trees stretched tall and twisted, their branches blocking the fading light. Then he heard footsteps behind his truck. Slow, dragging, wet. Mahesh closed his eyes tightly. When he opened them, someone sat in the passenger seat. A young boy. He looked barely 12 years old. His clothes were torn, and his face was covered with dirt and dried tears. Mahesh swallowed. Who are you?" The boy stared straight ahead. "I got lost," he whispered softly. Mahesh's heart sank. He remembered the woman's sacrifice. He remembered the warning. The road needed souls. "No," Mahesh muttered firmly. "Not this time." He turned toward the boy. "I will take you out of here." The boy slowly turned his head. His eyes looked empty, fading, like he was already being claimed by the road. "No one leaves," the boy whispered. Suddenly, the truck doors locked automatically. The headlights flickered on by themselves, illuminating the foggy road ahead. Mahesh's palm burned. The glowing words brightened. "Witness, guide, or replace." Mahesh screamed in pain, gripping his hand. Then he heard her voice. Soft, familiar. "Mahesh." He turned toward the back seat. The woman in the white dress sat there. Her appearance was fading, like smoke dissolving in air. But her eyes still held that same sadness. "You returned," Mahesh whispered. "I never truly left." she replied gently. Mahesh clenched his fists. Tell me how to break this curse. She looked toward the forest silently. The collector feeds on forgotten memories, lost travelers, people who are never searched for. Mahesh looked confused. So how do we stop it? She hesitated. There must be someone who remembers every soul taken by the road. Mahesh slowly understood. A witness. She nodded. But remembering them comes with a price. The ground outside began trembling. The shadow figures started emerging between the trees again. Their long limbs scraped across the road as they moved closer. The collector's massive shadow rose behind them, covering the sky like a living storm. The count continues. The deep voice echoed. The boy beside Mahesh began shaking violently. His body started fading into dark mist. Help me, the boy whispered weakly. Mahesh grabbed his hand tightly. I won't let them take you. The woman looked at Mahesh with pain in her eyes. If you choose to remember every lost soul, you will never leave the road again. Mahesh's breathing grew heavy. Then at least no one else will suffer, he said firmly. The collector laughed, a sound like mountains collapsing. You offer yourself willingly. Mahesh stepped out of the truck. The fog swallowed him instantly. The road stretched endlessly before him. Hundreds of shadow figures surrounded him, whispering, crying, begging to be remembered. Mahesh fell to his knees. Tell me your names, he whispered. The shadows rose. One by one, faint voices began speaking. Ravi, Anita, Samuel, Lena, Daniel. Mahesh repeated every name loudly, tears streaming down his face. The road beneath him began glowing faintly with each name he spoke. The collector roared furiously. You break the balance. Mahesh stood up, his palm glowing brighter. They will never be forgotten again. The shadow figures around him began transforming. Their twisted forms slowly straightened, their hollow faces softened, their shapes faded into peaceful lights, rising into the sky one by one. The collector's massive form started cracking like shattered glass. No, the creature screamed. The woman in white stepped forward beside Mahesh. For the first time, she looked human again. Warm, peaceful. You gave them freedom, she whispered. The collector lunged toward them in rage. The darkness exploded across the road, trying to swallow Mahesh completely. Mahesh shouted the final name. The first passenger. The woman smiled. That was me. A blinding white light erupted across the highway. The mist vanished instantly. The forest crumbled into dust like shadows. The collector let out a final earth-shaking scream before dissolving into nothingness. Silence fell. The road cracked apart slowly, breaking into empty darkness. Mahesh stood alone. The woman touched his shoulder gently. You freed us all. Mahesh looked around. Then, I can go home. She smiled sadly. You chose to become the last memory of this road. Mahesh's body slowly began turning into faint light. He nodded quietly. At least, no one else will be lost. The woman stepped backward into the rising lights of the freed souls. Thank you, witness, she whispered. Mahesh closed his eyes as his form dissolved into glowing mist, scattering across the sky. Months later, travelers driving across highways occasionally reported seeing a lonely man standing near dangerous roads, warning drivers to turn back during storms or midnight hours. No one ever saw him approach. No one ever saw him leave. Some claimed he saved their lives by stopping them from taking strange shortcuts through unknown roads. And sometimes, drivers passing through foggy highways heard a faint whisper through their radios. Choose the safe road. Because somewhere between reality and darkness, the last passenger still watches.